Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA Detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Welcome back to the Lights Out Podcast. Here with my friends once again, and we have a special guest, Tom Atencio. What do we got with this guy?
You know, Chris, I and Miguel, we love to go deep dives, and we get to go real super nerdy. So, this episode we pulled up Tom Atencio, former Affliction fame. He was the matchmaker for the two events that they had, which created quite a bit of stir in the MMA world. And we just kind of went on a deep dive with him,
Wasn't it amazing how crazy the Affliction shirts were? I mean, 7 out of 10 people at the UFC was probably wearing those shirts at one time.
If you were an MMA fan, you had that shirt. The guy made a mark. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, the guy made an indelible mark in the sport. And, we took a walk with him. We got to, hear his story and, pick up dirt. And, Miguel traded, war stories dealing with the Russians. That was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, that's the kind of – I would have asked him more questions about the shows. And I could have gone fighter by fighter with him and stuff like that just to hear stories and rehash. He signed guys that I had shots at and couldn't get done for whatever reason, like Josh Barnett, for example. Fedor is a feather in both our caps, so to speak, et cetera. So, yeah, I would have just kept it at that, but then you guys would have all passed out on me. So,
yeah.
So, good. But, I think it was a cool interview. It's definitely for the old school guys. We got some old school fighters set up for the next coming interviews as well. Tom's also a fighter. He had a couple of fights and stuff. I'm not putting him down, but we're going back to a 90s competitor that did it with no gloves, no shit, you know what I mean, for the next one. But without further ado, we bring you Tom Atencio.
So with us today, we got Tom Atencio, former Affliction fame. And, we're kind of going to trade stories. You guys only did 2 shows, but in terms of the imprint on the mixed martial art world, in our opinion, you guys made a pretty big impact. And, we're here to kind of, just bring everything along. So, Tom, what got you started with Affliction? Where's the beginning?
Well, with Affliction, 2005 is when it started. And I started training BJJ in 1994 with Joe Moreira, who was one of the first guys out here in California. I met Joe and kind of started working with him. And then in 2005, Affliction started. And my best friend at the time was Justin Levens, who used to fight in the WEC. He fought against Evan Tanner in the UFC. And then he fought on one of the cards with Chris. So that was the first time I saw Chris fight, was back in 2002, because I used to go to I used to be a fight photographer. And I used to photograph all of the IFC events. What was his name? Up in Northern California. And I know Jeremy Stevens fought on that card. And I think, Chris, you fought Nick Diaz, didn't you?
Oh, man, yeah, I remember that. Man, that was one of the places – that was a tough fight, by the way, out in the middle of the desert in the heat. I remember I stayed at the Paul Bunyan Motel or Lodge. Worst place I've ever stayed, dude. Nobody's room was this – I mean, this was a real shithole, man. That was a really fun fight, though, man. Huh?
Chris, you open up the door and you're outside type shit.
You try to turn on the light and you look and there's no light bulb thing in there, just a shade that goes. It's okay, and then you nobody's TV had worked properly, and you pull a drawer open it just felt oh my god, this place is a shithole, man. But
they were asking you to do hard work if you fought fucking Nick Diaz.
Here's the thing: I fought Nick Diaz when he was young. I was supposed to fight Jake Shields, and they told me he's not going to fight. So all right, and then I didn't think I was going to fight, and they go, "Oh, we got somebody else for you, a guy named Nick Diaz. He won Grappler's Quest. He won all this stuff." I'm like, "Who the hell is that?" All right, whatever. A 20-year-old kid, I'll fight him. And then I lost a split decision. I was about to quit the sport. I was like, I'm a UFC veteran. I just got beat by this guy who's never done anything. about a year later, he's in the UFC, so I felt a lot better after that. But for a while, I was disappointed about that one. I was like, man, I mean, especially a split decision. I remember too, because I had my buddy Alex Stiebling was cornering me, and by the third round, I'm done. I got nothing left, you know. And I actually, if you know how I fight, I took Nick down in the third round. I'm holding him down, and Alex is in the background going, "Stand him up, ref! Stand him up!" And I'm like, "No, I'm done," you know. And so they finally stand us up. In the last 2 minutes, Nick hits me and cuts me, and I pull guard, and he ends the fight, you know, punching me and wins the split decision. So I got done. I'm like, Alex, why'd you tell them to stand me up? He was like, you were winning on the stand up. I'm like, dude, you cost me the fight, man. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. So Tom, where's the okay? So you started with the jiu-jitsu community, and where does Affliction come in? Did you start with the T-shirt company, or did you go right over with the MMA?
No, we started as a T-shirt line, and what happened was I started. We kind of were all figuring out our places in the business, and I started sponsoring Justin when he started fighting in the WEC. So I was sponsoring him, and it was going pretty well. And then I started picking up other guys. And then when Justin fought Evan Tanner at the Honda Center for the UFC, they wanted to sponsor him, but they didn't want to spend the money. So all the other guys, the partners, didn't want to spend anything. And so I actually.
And what was the asking price? Do you recall?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I remember. he only wanted like $1,100. So at the time, yeah, think about it. And at the time, that was actually not bad. So I got my own money. I took my own money and I gave it to him, and he wore the shirt out. Well, of course, when they saw the exposure that came of it,
so they didn't have $1,100 to spend on.
They had it. They just didn't want. They just didn't believe in it. They just look. I was in MMA industry since early '90s. You know,
Yeah.
so I knew this was the sport of the future. I absolutely 100% knew. And so what happened was I gave him the money, myself, my own money. And when they saw the return on it, they were all on board. Oh yeah, 100%. So that kind of put my place. They're like, Tom, we want you to handle the entertainment and sports side of the business. So that's why I started sponsoring all the fighters and then all the musicians as well. Like I went after Megadeth. Megadeth was playing an event by my house, not too far. I went there, talked to the guys in the back, told them who I was and who I was with. They let me in the back, and then I ended up meeting Megadeth and brought them on board.
That's pretty cool.
It was just one. Yeah, it was one of those things where I knew the brand spoke for itself too. I mean, the brand from day one, everybody wanted it, and it was one of those things where it was just a one in a lifetime thing where everybody wanted to wear the stuff, and it wasn't a hard sell. But it just, I knew the MMA industry was going to blow up as well.
Yeah. So you were just kind of ahead of the curve then.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. So back in the day, because I mean, you're obviously a California guy. Did you have any interaction with any of the guys from TapOut? I mean, is that?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. I used to print TapOut in my garage. So a buddy of mine introduced me to Charles, and he told Charles about me because I come from the silkscreen industry. I started screen printing when I was 15 years old. And so he introduced Charles and myself to each other, told Charles I could take Charles' brand and help him, build it and do a lot of things that a lot of people weren't doing at the time, was screen printing. And so Charles met me, and I started screen printing Charles' TapOut stuff out of my garage. Well, remember Crave? Remember when the UFC was doing Crave Entertainment?
I do not.
I think it was a video game, if I remember correctly. But Crave, if you look back at the
around
old
the
videos,
Chuck Liddell days.
It was in the very beginning. I think it was UFC maybe even 10, 11, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So anyway, Crave Entertainment, Dana had some part in it. I don't know what it was, but Charles told them about me, and he gave me the job. Well, I was printing in my garage, and my mom was helping me, so I was printing by myself. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And
That's awesome.
I think they purchased like 500 shirts or something like that. One color shirts, front, back, and sleeve or something like that. So I was up for like 3 or 4 days straight, like just grinding, like getting it done. And my mom and my cousin came over and they were helping me. And Charles came over like the day after I was done, and I was in just a shitty mood. I was tired, exhausted. And then Charles and I had a falling out that day. And then we just never spoke until like years later after Affliction started and Affliction started blowing up. I saw him one day and I just went up to him and apologized and we talked but that, yeah. So like I said, I was really in the industry from day one.
Wow. That's cool. So those guys, like, so essentially, did you only do one run with them? Because, I mean, when you're talking about, like, the industry, you had to peek at their numbers. You knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I was with Charles and I used to go to events. Like, we used to go to all underground events and stuff. So he would know when an event was going to happen, whether it was in Long Beach or wherever it was, and we would go together. And then, like I said, I met Paul Smith was IFC up in Northern California. And so I met Paul Smith, and I used to do photography for Paul Smith. And then
those are phenomenal events. Those are phenomenal.
He had great event. Well, that's where I saw Jeremy Jackson and Nick Diaz fight for the first time, and that's when they were both really young. And it was just like, like I said, I've been in the industry since pretty much day one, and I always knew it was gonna. I knew it was gonna eventually blow up. I always knew.
Yeah, it's weird. Like Miguel is the same way. I'm the same way. Chris, all of us were like, no, you don't get it. This is the next thing. This is the next thing. And, like, I'd be at, like, a family party. They'd be like, all right, man, just talk about anything other than MMA. And then it was like, there was like a paradigm shift where it was like, no, wait a minute. No, my kid, he knows these people, come on. I mean, it just became, something that was taboo to accept it. And, I mean, I guess I would say California and Vegas were kind of the starting points of that, where it just kind of, turned the notch up a little bit.
What's worse than people talking about that when you would say you're involved in the sport? How do you think it was when you said you participated in the sport?
Jesus.
You're just going to fight in a cage?
Well, it seems nice.
That was people ask. You don't want to get a real job? You just want to try and break somebody's leg? I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know. Are you just going to –
it's just my thing.
You don't want to get married?
I liked in the early days. I liked in the early days having to show up at like a hospital with like Aaron or somebody fucked up from a fight and explaining to them what we had been doing. You know what I mean?
You did it on purpose,
well, I mean, some guys like putting ball gags in their mouths. Other people just like breaking things up with human beings. I don't know. I mean, I just fall into one of those two categories. That's all I can tell you. So, all right. So you started on the clothing side of it, obviously, and what you guys were like really kind of intermeshed with the UFC at some point.
Well, yeah. I mean, what happened was when we first started, everything.
Well, let me see if I can back you up before that. So, at some point, the UFC, and it was probably around 2010 or whatever. They were really like left without any competition, but. When Affliction, at some point, you carried the flag of being like the potential
sponsor,
but an alternate to UFC for fighters and for like you didn't get the roster that for those 2 fight shows just out of nowhere. There was a lot of people thinking that you could go on to compete with the UFC. Did you have that mindset going into
from the beginning,
the big shows, or because then and they got really big, so all of a sudden, I know I was in deep water with Bodog. It was a hard ship to manage, right? And now you're competing with them. If they look at you as a competitor, that's a tough thing, I think. So I don't know. I'll leave that to you to talk now, Tom. Sorry.
Yes and no. When we did it because we got banned from the UFC, which was the first event. It was called Banned. So yeah, when we did it, we went after the top fighters. But I don't think
how does that take place?
What's that?
How does it take place? How do you get banned from the UFC? Because you guys were the premier clothing sponsor.
Yeah. So what happened was, remember we did a poster with, I think it was with Fedor and Randy Couture. And
it was a promotional poster.
It was a promotional poster. Well,
for the clothing or for the MMA event? It
was for the clothing. And what happened was there was somebody that was working for me, and I truly 100% believe that they were working for Dana at the same time. So,
but this is when the UFC really didn't have a lot of money.
They always have billionaire owners, Mike, after Zuffa.
That's true, right? That's true.
Yeah,
so, no,
exactly.
wait. So, essentially, you got a guy working for you that's kissing Dana's ass.
100%.
Okay, there you go. All right, let's clarify that.
And what happened was we were talking about maybe starting a fight organization. Never really was anything more than having meetings with Josh Barnett and talking about, if we did it this way, if we did it that way, what would we do? And this was the same time as we were doing the posters. So obviously they got wind of it and they decided, you know what, that's it. We're not going to work with the Affliction anymore. And they're done. We banned them. So
was there legal paperwork sent to you guys?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I think, I don't know, to be honest.
How soon after that did they go with Reebok?
That was
many years later.
Yeah, it was way later.
Yeah, it was like there was years of Condom Depot in between there.
Yeah, no, that's where to be honest, I'm a little disconnected, so I knew that there was a time where, and part of it was like, did you guys, when you were an Affliction sponsor of the UFC, you had to pay the UFC a fee to allow your material to be on there.
Huge fee.
Because the first wave of eliminations of sponsors was the guys who couldn't afford that fee, right?
Well, yeah, but we were in there before that. We were in there when we were just sponsoring, when it was like a lot of these guys were like NASCAR.
Right, they asked for the fee and you guys could afford it, at least if,
Well, but yeah, but
I'll tell you how that came about.
That wasn't until after. But that we didn't start paying until after. So what happened was we were in before when everybody was wearing everything, and that was part of the problem. Is we had seen that we had seen that like guys were wearing 2 clothing sponsors, and to us that didn't make sense. So we were ending up having guys just wear Affliction and paying them right for it, so that they wouldn't have to go out and get another sponsor, and it ends up being another clothing line or TapOut, or what is it?
I'll tell you who it is. KTFO fucked it up for everybody.
Who?
KTFO.
Yeah.
They messed it up for everybody. They're the ones where the UFC's just like, we're done with these guys. We can't have them hanging out here. I got a little insight on that. Yeah, no, KTFO wrecked it for everybody. I know that for a fact.
So that's what we were in there when you didn't have to pay the UFC. So, and it was going well. And then, like I said, they got wind of it, and that's what happened. So we said, okay, you know what? That's fine. We're going to start. We're already talking to all these fighters. We already have a lot of the connections. Let's just start our own organization. And we did it. We just went full balls out.
Okay. So so I'm a regional promoter here in the Midwest. So whenever like a new guy comes in, of course I'm buying 15 cages. I got 28 trucks. They always kind of let everyone know they're rich.
Right.
And then they start hitting landmines.
Yep.
Was there anything placed in front of you guys that you ran over that you shouldn't have? Something that you didn't see that was kind of placed in front of you guys when you were starting this organization?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've said it in thousands of interviews. The problem was my partner, Todd. Great guy. He was an animal. Yeah. But the guy was just, when he wanted something, unfortunately, he was like a rich, spoiled little kid. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. The guy, when he wanted something, he would do whatever it took to get it. And unfortunately, Monte Cox and a bunch of other guys, you could just take that out. There were guys, there were a lot of guys that took complete advantage of it. And I say Monte because he did. I mean, think about it. Think about what Tim Sylvia
got paid.
Okay. So anyway, there were a lot of guys that took advantage of him. And
a lot of trailers in Maine.
Yeah.
Okay, hold up, guys. Just so we can go back, because I've seen facial expressions. Yeah. I'm going to start all over. At the end of the day,
we might not edit that out. That's pretty cool. Now, let me back you up. I'll back you up with a Monte story, because I recently talked to Monte, and I think this says it all. Monte was dealing with Brad Kohler for a show. Brad Kohler, a notorious promoter. Brad wasn't going to be able to pay the fighters at the end of the show. Nobody showed up and stuff like that.
No, but
Monte got his fighters paid, and everybody else didn't get paid.
Right,
Monte was
and
always
you know
a
what?
strict businessman.
And so, wait, yeah. So let's get something straight. I'm not talking shit about Monte because at the end of the day,
he got his guys paid.
No. But let me finish. Hold on. But at the end of the day, if he was my manager, you think for a second I wouldn't have been happy?
Right.
So that's why I say it was Todd's fault. Monte took advantage of the situation because he's a businessman. He's good at what he does.
He read it.
I don't blame Monte. I don't.
He read this,
because
he read it.
because if Monte was working for me, that's exactly what I would have wanted too.
He did.
So,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chris.
At the end of the day, what people don't understand is that is what your manager's job is to do, is to get you the most amount of money for your fight. And you know what? It is up to the matchmaker or the plenty guy is to say, no, this is all we can afford.
Be the governor.
You have to,
Yes.
You have to have that
back in.
Right.
Exactly what happens. I've seen it happen many times in the Midwest. But somebody will come and they will destroy the market because they're paying guys $3,000 who should be making $1,200 or $800, and they pay them $3,000. That happens twice, and they never put on another fight, and nobody else will fight for anybody else because they're way overpaying. Yep. And that's what I'm saying. You are messing up the market, and you're not going to be able to put on another fight, and you have to have that balance and tell the fighters, no, you can't be their friends. But I mean, as a manager, I'm going to ask for the world, and then there's a negotiation. And if you don't negotiate, that's on you. You know what I mean? So you're 100% accurate. You know why? Because Monte's a good damn manager. Say what you feel, he feels it, and
that's what it comes down to, guys. And so that's why I'm saying, like, okay, so I brought up his name, but
there were others.
I don't have any bad feelings against Monte because, like I said, business and so you brought up, are there any hurdles? Was there anything that? Yeah, that was it. But it wasn't. He did his job. Yeah. We didn't. And that's what the problem was, is like I said, okay, so he understood Todd, and I knew that Tim had only made, the most Tim had ever made was $14,000 to fight and win. Okay. And so when he came in, nuts. I was telling Todd, no, that's too much. It's not worth it. I knew it. Now, but I didn't have the say. I wasn't the one who had the final say. So when I bring up a name of somebody, if they're doing their job, then there's nobody to blame. I always go back to the scorpion and the frog. You know the story of the scorpion and the frog?
Absolutely.
Okay. I can get along with anybody if I know them. And if you're a scumbag and we get along, I'm fine with it. I don't have an issue because I know that if something happens, I have nobody to blame but myself, because guess what? I'm the one who let you get on my back, and I'm the one who tried to take you across the river. Yep. Okay? But if I cross all my T's and dot all my I's and I look and I go, okay, no, I'm not doing this with you because I know you. Love you to death. We're friends, but guess what? No, I'm not fucking going into – sorry. No. Can I cuss?
No, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not fucking going in business with you. I'm not doing this with you. Because if I do, I know I'm going to get burned unless I protect myself. So at the end of the day, whether you want to call them a scumbag or whatever you want to call them, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, and that's making a living for your family, then guess what? That's what they're doing.
Okay, so how many people here? You guys only did 2 shows, and granted, you're sitting here with us today because we watched both of them. We respected what your body of work. So with 2 shows in, guys like Monte, how did they figure out how to go around the matchmaker so quick?
Todd, they got along with Todd. Todd was
a big partier. I mean, Todd. I know Todd was notorious for partying.
He was a party animal, and he didn't know the fight industry, and I think really Todd kind of was in a sense enamored. Like a lot of, Chris, you can attest to this. A lot of people when they meet you because you're a fighter, they're just kind of enamored by you, and anything you want to do, and they're kind of like, and Todd wasn't like that, but to a sense he really was, and it
was the hottest sport in the world at one point.
Yeah.
And he's got, people lined up and he's paying them. Yeah. I mean, you can see it. You can see why.
And I've always said, there's most men There's only two types of men that most men look up to. Somebody that can beat your ass or somebody that has more money than you. Right?
There's both of them for life.
And if you have both, you're the man. I mean, think about it.
Look at Miguel. Miguel just turned his pockets inside out. Yeah.
No, it's true, and I can do neither. So it's it's a terrible spot to be in.
All right, so you guys get banned from the UFC, and the one thing that stands out to me right around that time was George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre fought, and he had zero sponsorship. And it was, did you guys pay him not to have a sponsor, or was that just him being loyal?
We did that.
Nice.
You guys paid him. Because you guys got a lot of press out of that, man. Like the diehards and the hardcores, when they saw George St. Pierre do that, I'm going to be honest with you, man, it made people talk.
Todd was a really, really smart guy. You would meet him, and he was all tattooed, and he was spent a little time in prison, and he was really very methodical, and he was a functioning alcoholic. He would drink for the
Miguel.
So, but honestly, he really was, and he was my best friend, and the guy, and he was very methodical about a lot of stuff, and had I never met Todd, I don't think I would have been where I was. I don't think I would have ever had all of the
doors,
accolades and everything that happened. And I always say it. He is absolutely 100% putting me where I was. So
that's pretty cool.
I did a lot, but when I worked my butt off and I earned it. But I think Todd was I don't think he was. He was the mastermind behind the whole brand, everything. He's the one who came up with the name. He's the one who came up, he really did do everything.
That's one thing I was going to say. How do you feel about the fact that a lot of times, people say, oh, there's all these guys there with skin-tight Affliction shirts on walking around like they're – I mean, it was kind of everybody –
It became a slight.
Everybody who was involved with MMA or wanted to be fighter was wearing the shirts. Like, it dominated. Everybody did want those shirts. I mean, how did that even happen? I mean, how did you guys – was it just – the timing right in those pictures? It was pretty amazing how when you go to a fight, there would be, like I was saying, half the people wearing those shirts.
Well, to give them credit too, I mean, and I know in the prep, Mike told me that the clothing company and the fight stuff was kept separate on a business level. But I bought this at a store, an Affliction store in Vancouver. So, I mean, they had distribution. It was out there and available and in many, many different places, not just fight places.
I mean, it was expensive too. I mean, it was.
This was $110.
Everybody wanted it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, what it was is it was business, and there's lots of times where a lot of companies have the distribution, but they don't have the demand, and then there's some companies that have the demand, but they don't have the distribution. We 100% had both. We had distribution and demand, and we made the demand.
Did they find you guys, or did you guys just kind of start this with them?
We built a demand, and then the distribution came because Todd was a salesman. Todd was one of the best salesmen I've ever worked with. Todd, you would go into a meeting with Todd looking for a raise, and you would come out with less money and thinking you got a better deal.
Okay, so what'd you guys do? Did you guys have just concentrate on trade shows prior to MMA?
Well, I mean, think about our distribution. We had Buckle, which was one of the biggest, the fastest growing retailers. Huge, they're a public company. Then we had Nordstrom's, Macy's. We had all the top retailers at the time, and that was in Canada as well. So we had distribution, but we also had it to where we didn't allow anybody to put anything on sale. Todd, like I said, he knew the industry and he was a smart guy.
Did you guys pay for that market share, or did it come because you guys were so hot?
It came because we were so hot. And like I said,
that's California rich right there. Like that's a California story. It's a California, New York story. You're not going to get that.
The brand, like I told you guys earlier, from day one, the artwork was perfect. It was polished. It was tattoo art. And we started out in the motorcycle and tattoo industry. That was the original industry. But
Smart.
what happened is because of my fight background, and I'm the one who got it into the fight industry, but it was a perfect timing. It was perfect timing, exact right place, the right time when it comes to the fight industry.
If you look
and
at
that's
it,
really what blew us up.
you know, TapOut blew up too, and if you look
Yep.
at it, it was around the same time as like Orange County Choppers.
Yep.
That brand was getting major distribution and stuff like that. So you
West
place
Coast
at the right
Choppers?
time,
Was it like with the
was it an
German
OC?
cross?
Was it an OC? I don't
Nah,
know.
it was a German cross one.
It doesn't matter, but yeah, no, it was definitely a hot problem. But let's get to fight talk, please. Let's get. I want to ask. You did 2 major, historic shows. What was your favorite fight out? Like, what was the one you loved most?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
What was the best in-ring fight? What was your favorite fight of the whole show, of the shows? And then in negotiations stuff, anything, we'll talk about figuring out whether there's anything interesting there or not.
Oh, sure.
I think, I tend to be partial, because there's certain people that I get along with, and
That's
and certain
okay.
people That,
Just say it. So you're 10 years past. Go ahead.
Yeah. Paul Buentello versus Little Fedor. What was his name? Sadelnikov. I can't think of his name, his first name.
Okay.
I mean, that kid was so tough, and Paul was just picking him off and just beating the hell out of him.
Buentello was a bad man.
Yeah, he had some of the best hands in the industry.
Yeah.
But that fight, and it wasn't because he was beating the crap out of the kid. The kid was just tough as nails. He was what you would expect of a Russian, that stereotype.
Admit it, you liked it when the Russians lost. Admit it. I did. I used to like it.
But I mean, the kid just kept going forward, and just there was no quitting the kid. And he was losing horribly. But that fight, to me, I thought it was a pretty phenomenal fight. But then Fedor, what he did to Tim, what he did to Arlovsky.
Arlovsky was amazing.
I don't think anybody expected that, and yeah, the way he took out Arlovsky, just like.
You watched The Last Emperor, ready to take a loss, and he just throws a Hail Mary bomb, and
yep.
Arlovsky's like, getting told what just happened.
And I watched that over and over and over and over again. Arlovsky was coming in for the kill with that high knee, and when Fedor just comes in with that, it was just like the most beautiful timing.
He punched an airplane out of the air. That's what he did.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. Yeah. So, those are the ones that really that. And then, God, poor Matt Hughes. No, not Matt Millen. Oh man, that was scary. What happened to him was scary. I thought for sure something happened to him.
Was that Belfort knocking him out?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he actually went into convulsions.
Really?
Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those where Belfort found like his hands from like 1998, and it was just,
yeah.
It was all natural.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Pre-steroid test. They didn't have those problems.
So, but let's get right into it then, because you had not only Fedor, but you had a couple other Russians. So talk a little bit about the Russian connections. I know this fascinates Michael.
I do. I love it. I do. I love it.
Oh my God! Just nightmare, complete nightmare. Just it was like.
That's why I like it.
Yeah, it was just. I mean, you guys know it was.
First, did you have to travel to Russia to get any of the deals done?
Yes, I traveled there 4 times, I think.
Okay, start talking.
Miguel brought me there once. I used to grill Miguel about it. He's like, all right. I broke him. He finally brought me one time, and I saw it, and it lived up to my expectations.
Oh, it was pretty sick. It was, I've been very fortunate. I've traveled a lot since I was started 15, 16, going to Europe and stuff. And I never really had a desire to go to Russia. Wow. That was an experience, man. The first time I went there and just the way they handled everything. Wow. It's a man's dream come true.
Enough said.
Exactly.
So how does the talks with you and Fedor go down?
You know, I never really Fedor
with his management, I should say.
Yeah,
you never
Fedor
talked to
always
him.
played like he didn't speak English, but he spoke way more than anybody knows. way more. But you know, it was just the reason the UFC never worked with them is because they wanted to basically own the company that they were working for. They knew the commodity that they had. They knew Fedor at the time was the #1 fighter in the world. And they knew that, and they had, you know, a bargaining chip that we were basically partners with them, is really what it came down to.
Wow. Yeah, but, you know, they're partners with them with no risk coming out of their end.
100%.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, it's an ownership stake without any risk. Yeah, it was weird how
they're making all their money. So they're making, you know, they're not only no risk, but they're getting paid too.
Did they make you use their travel agent?
I think you and I talked about this before.
Yeah, we did.
I think so. I'm almost positive if I remember correctly. It's been so long.
Miguel, what about you? Were you forced to use their travel agency?
You know, there's a lot of gray area there, you know. I'll tell you, the bottom line is I had my actual sponsorship and money was from a Russian at the time I dealt with Fedor. So there's some type of circle there where Fedor handled the negotiations with the boss, Vadim handled negotiations with the boss there, and I was given certain parameters. I was told he was going to make $500,000 for the fight. I was told that, I signed the contract, right? So I guess if he's got to sue somebody for it, it was going to be me. But,
good luck.
But the point is his opponent had to make less, and that was the deal. So I figured I'd pay him the same, and I think they actually bumped him to $500,001 because he wanted to make more. That was about the only thing. And then the idea was that he would have a reasonable or a relatively showcase opponent. The first negotiation I had with him was for Randy Couture, and that was for a lot more money. Couture signed with the UFC, wasn't available. So I fell back to Linlin, and that's where, you know, at some point they came up to me and they were mad because Linlin was not the opponent. You know, they realized he was not the opponent. I tried to slip one on them, and you know, that was it. But then, you know, we get to Russia and everything went their way. So oddly enough.
So Tom, what was the vetting process like in regards to getting all the Russians over with you in your organization?
You get a list. You get a list. These are the guys. These are the weight classes. Make fights for them.
Yeah, it was a lot of, this is who we want to fight. This is who's going to fight, and this is, you know, when you got names, you look them up. You can't find anything on these people, like you know, and then you would get a little bit of video from them, which God, what's his name? Did you ever know Jerry?
Millen. Jerry Millen.
Yeah. Did you know that guy?
See the air just deflated.
I'm not sure.
If you guys caught that or not.
You never met Jerry Millen?
Maybe, but I'm not familiar with who. Like,
anyway.
So then I would. Anyway, I'm on his social media.
I'd get video and stuff from him, and then, you know, I mean, it was, again, you know, I can't blame him. If you're in the seat, because look, think about it. Think about who they had. Think about whose fault was it that we did what we did.
Yeah, it was yours.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does Jerry Millen on the Russian side look? So you told us about some of the other promoters, how they went at Todd. Does Jerry do the same thing with Todd, or is it a different angle?
No, Jerry tried working me, and then I saw that. I saw who he was. I saw exactly who he was. And
was he just trying to finesse you, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, because Jerry was the guy who would always try to find whoever he could work with. And, you know, he ended up working with me, but what happened
what was his position? I mean, does he speak Russian?
No.
So how did he wind up there?
Because he ended up weaseling into with them. And because he was always finding an angle in order to do like a documentary on, his whole angle was to do the video production for everything. And that was always the angle. So he ended up getting in with them. That's how
I can't figure out how he has attached himself to Fedor. Like I mean, you say documentary and stuff like that. I mean, is there a Fedor documentary that we're unaware of?
He was trying. Yeah, no, he was trying. He was doing it. He has all kinds of footage, and he went to their camp. He sent all kinds of stuff. He got all kinds of footage. He went and lived there for like a couple of weeks, a month, whatever, and was filming constantly, always. Yeah, that was his whole angle on the thing.
Interesting.
So he ended up working with them, not with us.
Yeah, no. By the
Did
time
he initially try to start working with you guys?
Yes.
So that's how Jerry got. So probably your Affliction event was the first time he attached himself with that camp.
I think he wanted to do the production for it, but we ended up getting somebody else.
So he somehow used you guys to. Okay, so he somehow used you guys to get involved, and he's still attached to him.
I think so. I don't know.
No, I know so. Yeah, I'm on his social media. Yeah. Wow.
Wow. I have a question for you. So you guys put on 2 really high level, really phenomenal fights. I mean, you know, it was a cool thing at the time because being in part of the UFC, people were going, oh, there's somebody else now. You know, there is a rival that people could go to try and get more money. I mean, that's always the biggest problem. Now, obviously, you guys feel like you overpaid in a way. And, I mean, was there ever a thought of maybe we could pull it back a little bit and try and put on some lesser fights, or was that just never really an option? After the second one, you go, hey, we gotta stop the bleeding here. I mean, was there never any conversation like that, or what happened?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. We were actually talking about that, and I had spoken to the press about that. We were going to go and talk to people, and there were some people that were willing to do it. But yeah, I mean, it really was, and I kept saying it. If we had broken even or got close to breaking even in the third event, we would have had more events, and that was really the plan. There was never really any deviating from that. And then
how ugly were the financials for the first 2 events?
Say it again.
How ugly were the financials for the first 2 events?
See, but that's what people don't understand. It was a giant Affliction commercial.
It was a huge commercial.
A giant commercial. So it's no different. It's no different than going on Prime television and placing an ad.
I agree.
You know, and yeah,
give it away.
We lost money, but think about the money we made in product. Think about the money we made in GSP shirts. Think about the money we made in Affliction Day of Reckoning, Affliction Band shirts. Think about the money that we made in product alone. Now, keep in mind, the profit margins on our T-shirts were unheard of.
Yeah,
we were a vertical company. We owned the manufacturing facility as well. So what a T-shirt that costs somebody, let's say $8, maybe $10, cost us $5, $6. You know, so at the end of the day, if you do what those shirts were wholesaling for, not retail, wholesaling for, you know, it was stupid. It was ridiculous. But like I said, it was once in a lifetime thing that doesn't happen very often.
Okay, so we started this interview by you saying you had to use your own money to sponsor your buddy.
But this was from the very beginning. Very beginning.
So now you've got this huge event going on. Obviously, the numbers aren't there yet if you look at just what's in front of you. But the things you're addressing about it, because I mean, they're still playing that Fedor Tim Sylvia knockout. Like it's still in a rotation. So did the people that kind of fought you tooth and nail in the beginning of the process also fail to see that this was a giant infomercial? So Todd kind of got Me Too'd before it became cliche to do it. Was it an organized effort? Do you think that was it something that people were intentionally doing just to try to get him out for like a power grab? Or what was your opinion on it?
Not to get into the whole aspect of what happened, but yeah, Todd was a very gruff guy. Todd was the kind of guy that you either loved him or you hated him. There was no in between. And a lot of people disliked Todd, but it was for the same reason. If you make a deal with Todd and you feel like you got screwed, are you going to end up liking that person? No. And you know, Todd was a smart guy. Todd could sell, you know, ice to Eskimos. Todd could sell, you know, he was good at what he did, and he figured out a way to convince you that you got a good deal. But unfortunately in the fight industry, he didn't. And that's where things started going wrong. And then partners started fighting about some other things. And it just, you know, eventually they got rid of him twice. It was the second time. And that's when, you know, it just, but anytime Todd left the industry, the brand, it started going downhill, and it was proven. So why they didn't figure something out was beyond me, because, you know, it always, from day one, the brand was always considered a douchebag brand from day one. And that came from a couple different things. From number one, jealousy. Okay. Number two, price points. And number three, because it was a lot like, you know, the Christian Audigier, what was that brand? The tattoo brand that was just like.
You guys, I know what you're talking about. It's like, you guys were so much edgier.
Yeah, but still, it always had that. And we did a survey and we checked it out. And really, what it was considered a douchebag brand is because of jealousy. Any guy that would see a guy wearing an Affliction shirt, they would say it was the guy either had money, so they were jealous of him because he was wealthy, or the guy worked out and he was always at the gym, so he was in good shape. Yeah. So it always had that stigma to it. But it was a brand that people would save money to buy. It was a brand that wasn't an impulse buy. It was a brand that people literally would have to save money in order to purchase it. You know, some people, obviously there were others that could afford it, no problem. But it was a brand that people would save money just because it was a status brand. You know, we were the reason they started letting people wear T-shirts into nightclubs. Prior to that, they didn't let you wear a T-shirt. But if you showed up in an Affliction shirt, because of the price points, they knew, and they started allowing people to wear T-shirts into clubs.
Wow. All right, so back to a couple more fight questions, if you don't mind. All right, Scott Smith. He gave some legendary post-fight comments about you on more than one occasion. Where does it come from, and would you mind sharing some of those?
Yeah, absolutely.
For their audience?
So Scott and I used to fuck with each other constantly. And anybody that knows Scott, he is a motherfucker. That guy, he's relentless. He does not stop. And once he starts going, he's just ruthless. And so we became really good friends. I used to go to his house and hang out with him, up in Northern California and stay with him and stuff. But we would just get drunk, like just shitty drunk, like horrible.
Just alcohol?
Just alcohol, yeah.
Okay.
And so the first time he did it, I was in Las Vegas, and I met this girl that night and ended up staying with her. And Scott had called me a couple of days before, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to come out to my fight." And I go, "Dude, I'm in Vegas. I'm working. I don't know when I'm." He goes, "Dude, I got you a plane ticket, everything, or whatever. You can afford it, whatever it was. I don't remember what he said, but I need you to come out to my fight. I want you to corner me." And I go, "Dude, I'm not going to corner you, Scott. Tom, come out. If you don't come out, I'm going to ruin you. I promise you." I'm like, yeah. So he forewarned me. He forewarned me. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I was with this girl, with her all night, whatever. Woke up like 10, 11 o'clock the next morning, really late. And we ended up going to dinner the night of his fight. And we're at dinner, and I start getting all these text messages. Bing, 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 bing. My phone's just going off. "Oh my God, you're such a, oh my God, you're so," all this, derogatory stuff to me. And I'm like, what's going on? And I've never cared. I couldn't care less. I just started laughing. So then Scott's manager calls me up. He goes, "Dude, you just got ruined. And I'm like, what? And my brother texts me, oh my God, is that true? What is wrong with you? You're such a wreck. And I'm like, what's going on? His manager goes, Scott just said that you couldn't be at his fight because you got a belly button ring infection. So Scott,
that was his post-fight. That was
post-fight. I want to thank my friend Tom Atencio from Affliction. He couldn't be here tonight because he got a belly button ring infection.
I remember that.
Yeah. So that was the first time.
I thought it was great. I remember that too. I thought it was awesome. Yeah.
And Chris, think about this. To have the composure after a fight to say something like that.
Oh, that was played out because a lot of times after a fight, your adrenaline level's up here and you're on some weird overdrive where you look back later and you're like, was that me saying that stupid shit? So you have to be you have to be thinking that before, and he had to be pissed and be like, I'm going to say something. What am I going to say? Okay. And he probably had to have his cornerman tell him, hey, remember what you're going to say, because you can't just spontaneously do that. That was a well thought out and well planned thing. And
100%.
By the way, one of the best knockouts ever was Scott versus Drago. But he did.
Yep,
100%.
Remember that?
Nobody you can't beat it.
Oh. Yeah.
Hall of Fame fight. Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, how do you ever, when he gets hit and he's dropped and he's in Winston in pain, he's like one Hail Mary punch, he throws it, knocks out Pete.
Yeah, dude, it's something that's in
if
movies.
you haven't seen it, you got to Google it right now.
It's something
that is such the best knockout by far.
Yeah.
By far.
Never.
I agree.
The only one that matches that is Czech Congo against Pat Barry.
Yeah,
Pat Barry.
You're right. That's
the only other one.
That's close, but I still think, Scott's better. But it's close.
So that's what he did. He did that. He said, I want to thank my friend Tom Atencio, who couldn't be here, my Taibo instructor. He said that one. And then the last one was, I want to thank my friend Tom Atencio. I want to congratulate my friend Tom Atencio, who's in Canada. He just got married, and he paused to his life partner, Lance.
Yeah.
So that's and I was told, I don't know if it's true or not, I was told that one of the games they put it on that he would thank me at the end of the game, one of the after he'd win a fight.
Oh my God. So you must have been like watching this fight. He's a friend of yours going, please, please don't give him the microphone.
I start cornering him after the first one, I think. That's on you. You have
see, I take full responsibility.
You know the consequence. Corner that. What's wrong with you?
Hey, guys, no, I have to tell you this. Now listen, check this out. And Uriah Faber still, to this day, has told me, Tom, nobody has ever gotten Scott back. And he loves the story. So Scott used to cock block me too. We'd get all drunk and we'd be at bars or something, and I'd be hitting on a chick, a woman, whatever, girl, whatever, and Scott would cock block me constantly, never, always, constantly. So one night he came down and we were having an event at one of the Nordstroms down by my house. And so Scott comes and he stays with me. And there was this girl, Nikki. Who used to work for us. Hot. She was really hot, really cool. So I go, Nikki, I need you to do me a big favor. She goes, okay, no problem. So that night, I told Scott, hey, Scott, I'm dating Nikki now. Do me a favor. Just stay away from her. I really, really like her. I think this is going to be the one. We get along really, really well. Scott proceeds to get drunk. What does he do? He starts hitting on her.
Sure.
So I lived walking distance. It was one of my best friend's bar in Laguna Beach. I lived walking distance from the bar. So she took him to my house. She handcuffed him to my bed, both his feet and his legs, naked. Naked.
Phenomenal.
And a friend of ours jumped out of the closet. Her friend, another girl, jumped out of the closet and took photos.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Nice.
What did that run you? What did that run you?
Nothing. It was. They had so much fun doing it. So check this out. Money. So the next morning, he shows up late to the event. We're there. John McCarthy, Elaine McCarthy, Rampage, like all these guys. We were doing a signing, and I sent all of them the photos.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Or maybe I didn't send him. Maybe I told him about it or something.
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't know. I don't remember. God, it's been so long. So Scott shows up and everybody's dying laughing. Everybody's just busting up, just busting his balls. He had no idea. He didn't even know what happened. So I told him and I showed him the photos, and he proceeds to go into this panic mode, freaking out. Bro, I'll never mess with you again, bro. I promise you. just give me those photos. I promise you. I was dying laughing. I said, you know what, Scott? I have these. You're never going to get these.
Yeah.
Dude, they're gonna take my kids away if this happens. He was freaking out. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. But I don't think anybody ever got him like I did.
That's good.
So,
That's good. I'll turn
I
my
finally got
fair
him
play.
back.
So, Tom, I mean, you and I have talked, a few times in the past, and you shared with me an Aleksander Emilianenko story. Would you mind? Would you care sharing that with these two guys? This is phenomenal.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, have you met Alec?
No.
He's a big boy.
Oh yeah,
So-
I've seen him, but I've never met him.
Yeah. So I'm in Russia, and Mike, you guys, Miguel, you guys probably have. Did you go to the boat, the ship?
Yeah.
Okay. So Chris, I don't know if you know
The 18th century.
Yeah, it's the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah.
So they have a replica of the Flying Dutchman on the
Was it like a slave ship?
yeah.
No, it's like an 18th. It was a Dutch Armada ship and
Oh,
it's
is it
sitting
Armada?
on
Okay.
it's sitting on the river right. Well, when I
Across
was
from the
on it,
Hermitage.
it's sitting on
The
right
Hermitage
from the-
Museum.
Yeah.
So it's a huge ship sitting on the river right across from the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, Russia. And when you get there, there's 3 restaurants and 2 nightclubs, a gym, and I think 3 bedrooms or something like that. It's sick. You get there and you walk up, and there's these women swinging from the ceiling in just a G-string, nothing else. It's like I said, it's a man's dream come true.
When we walked up, there was a woman that was probably like a foot taller than me, completely naked with just bulldog tattoos, playing a saxophone.
Yeah. So they do it. Yeah, exactly. So they do it for your benefit, and it's just off the chains. So
There were dwarves in a ring upstairs, like simulating boxing. Dwarves.
I didn't have that. I didn't get that.
The only thing I remember thinking, the only thing missing is like amputees, like hopping in the corner just for the sake of it. They had black. There were black men in loincloths that did the cleaning up and stuff like that. It was like Africans from Africa because it's Russia and stuff. It's like really weird.
Yeah. It really is. It's like a dream, huh? It's like kind of like it's surreal. It's
Like you don't believe it's true. Okay.
Yeah, you really don't, because you hear about this stuff and you don't really experience this. It's like it's very few people that experience it.
Could have been an acid flashback. We don't know.
It's crazy. So I'm there. I'm drinking. I'm having fun, and I have to go to the bathroom. Well, the bathroom's down this long staircase, and then it's down the bottom of the boat. So I'm going down. I go down.
I smoked pot in that bathroom.
So as I'm coming up, Aleksander's coming down, and he doesn't know who I am. So I just go, and I normally don't do this, but first time I go, hey, Alec, I'm Tom, Affliction. And I put my hand out, and he shakes my hand. And as he's shaking my hand, at the same time, he's unbuckling my watch. Like literally taking my watch off me. and he's a big guy. So I'm like, I grab my watch and I go, no, and I run and I take off. And I'm tripping out. I'm like, this didn't just happen. It had to have been a joke. With the straight face, like just that Russian Fedor.
There's no way he could be a criminal. It's Fedor's brother.
Does it look like one?
So then a few minutes later, I'm sitting at the bar. He comes and sits next to me, and somebody starts interpreting for us.
Yeah, he's not done. Yeah, he's not done. Yeah.
That shirt, he likes your shirt. He wants to trade you. And he's wearing the skin tight, like spandex white shirt. I think it says K1. I don't know if it was K1 shirt or what it was. I still have the shirt. And he takes it off, and I apparently have to take my shirt off and give it to him. So I did. and I put it on and it's sweaty. So I have to put it on. It's disgusting. Yeah, exactly. So, but that was just, just meeting him and just taking my watch off. It was just,
Did they later on use that as like a DNA sample for the hotel maid that he went to prison for?
Yeah.
Debone and just give me that shirt.
Yeah. It was no different. Yeah, exactly. So
how often does that work for him? He just takes people watching.
Probably all the time. Imagine most people are just like, oh, don't even say anything.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you, sir. Yeah, exactly. So, but it was a trip. Yeah, I had a good time. It was some really surreal things happened.
Now, the wiki page for the show that you canceled says that the reason it was canceled the week before the fight was because Barnett tested positive. Now, I've done enough shows to know that had to be the straw that broke the camel's back, but there was like a lot of other shit probably going on. But talk about that. Did it ever cross your mind that somehow that was orchestrated by the UFC or did you ever hear that rumor or any of that stuff?
Without bringing up the whole reason, I can guarantee you it is. I mean, look, I don't want to get into it. I don't care. I've always said I don't think I was ready for that type of business when you're dealing with somebody like the Fertittas and you're dealing with that level of businessman. And again, I always try to take responsibility for what I do. And just like I've said before, they won, and that's really what it comes down to. That's really what it comes down to.
It's funny. I to a certain extent, I look at it the same way. I was a good fight for just about everybody, but man, oh man, oh man.
Yeah, there's levels to this game, son.
Hindsight's 20/20, and I look back and I think of the mistakes that I made. I think about how much fun I had. I think about the experience that I've experienced that most people will never even get a chance to or get close to, or I fought 3 times, and
right.
Like Chris, that's something that most people will never do, and I experienced it, and not at the level that Chris did, or not at the level that I knew I never would, but at the end of the day, I've experienced things in my life that most people will never, ever, ever experience.
And I always tell people, you're a different person after you go through that process. And it's just going through the fight camp, setting that goal for 2 months away, doing everything you can in that 2 months. The week before build-up and the mental games that plays with you to overcome that and actually weigh in and walk into that cage. Win, lose, or draw, you're different afterward. You know what I mean? So you just have a different sense of how things need to run and how things should be. And you overcome a lot. I would think everybody should have to fight once, even if you don't ever want to again. Just you're a different person afterwards. I fully believe that.
Yeah. I think also the fact that I've always said I'll always have respect for anybody that gets in there, win, lose, or draw. Even if you have a 10-0, I mean a 10 fights and no wins. You do it. You still grind. You still go in there.
You saved a couple cards. Minimally,
yeah,
you saved. You helped out a ticket seller.
In there against a guy that has trained for you, that is prepared for you, that has been ready to punch your face in. And that's why and no, I'm not saying anything bad, but that's why I've never understood when guys that do jiu-jitsu tournaments go, oh yeah, I've got a fight coming up. No, you don't have a fight. Yeah, you have a jiu-jitsu tournament coming up. You have, but it's not a fight. You get punched in the face, that's a fight. I don't care.
All right, so Tom, how involved in the jiu-jitsu community were you back in the day?
Back in when I was with Joe, I helped Joe establish the USFBJJ, the U.S. Federation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Miguel,
U.S. Why?
Do I ask the question or do you ask the question?
Go ahead.
Okay. Why do you think Goker and Hickson never met on the mat?
I couldn't even begin to tell you, honestly.
Okay, so you're a California guy. Well,
yeah.
we can't figure it out either. That's.
But
yeah,
you know what though? Okay,
yeah.
and but you know what though? There was a lot. So I'm a Marco Huas guy. Okay, so
Did you ever see Bas Rutten in the gym?
Yeah,
that's badass.
So
That's awesome.
I trained with Marco since I think 1998.
Okay.
Yeah, I started with Marco in '98, and my son trains with Marco now. So I've
awesome.
known Marco since then. Love Marco to death. Marco's awesome. The same thing with why him and Hickson have never. I've talked to him about that. I've talked to. I think.
What's he say?
Oh God, you want to get a mouthful. Talk to him about Hickson. But you know what? It's
hey Miguel, mark that down as a future interview. All right, so go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
I think it's one of those things that it just probably like Randy and Fedor never fought. I think it's just,
how's Ruas's English nowadays?
His wife speaks great English.
Oh, okay.
Well, we only need one question. To be honest with you.
No, he speaks English. He speaks English for sure.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite fighters back in the day. It's just you and it is here. We've got two standard questions. Kerr or Coleman, who wins that fight if they ever did it for the the old school cats. And if somebody's from the West Coast, it's just why have these two never met? Why have they never met? So those are the two questions I will ask every interview that in any possibility of me having that opportunity, I'm going to take it.
Yeah. God, I was watching that one when you guys talked about that when Chris said Sakuraba, Miguel. I think you said Dan Henderson and Mike. Did you say Kerr?
Mike picked Henderson. I picked Kerr, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So yeah, for me, it's like watching all these guys. I don't think I could pick. I really don't. I was such a fan, but not only that, I was a fan of K1 fighters too.
Yeah.
And for me, it was I've always been a bigger fan of lightweight fighters. Like Kid Yamamoto, Ramon Decker. Like to me, those guys, as far as kickboxing goes, to me, those guys were just like, wow. And for me, lighter weight guys, they seem like they're more technical, and from start to finish, it's just a fight. And it's just heavyweights. Everybody loves a knockout. Everybody loves to see a big guy beat another big guy. But for me, I've always been a fan of lighter weight fighters.
And that still applies. That applies even more in jiu-jitsu too, because it's like you get that interchange and that flow, man. where it's like you just don't get it at.
And I always tell the people this, and I feel bad for all heavyweights, because I always tell my buddy Matt and them, heavyweights are terrible fighters. They're not good. Every other fighter, every weight class, you got to be good at everything. You don't have to be at heavyweight, man. You have to be able to hit hard. That's it.
You saying Derek Lewis is a one-trick pony?
Fighters in the world, they're not nearly as good. I'm sorry, they're not. Who's really good at both standing up in the ground? They might be great on the ground. Good at any other weight class, you got to be good at everything. Heavyweights are the most powerful guys, but man, they're just not technically as good as anybody, in my opinion. And I always tell them that, and they don't agree, but I'm right.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's one of the reasons why, if you could take somebody like Demetrius Johnson and put his skill package in a bigger man, wow.
But
anyway, but talk about like the Southern California scene in jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, because a lot of like that frontline guy like wound up in California, like back from the day, like. Did you know Comprito Medeiros, Joe Moreira? Like, who else is over there? Like, did Saulo Ribeiro and his brother wind up in California? There's so many of those. Yeah, there's so many of those guys that made the transition over there. Like who impressed you and stuff? Like, I remember seeing Marcelo Garcia for the first time and blah, blah, blah. Like, so let's talk a little jiu-jitsu too. So. Oh
God, there are. There in San Diego alone, I think in 2000, what was it? I think 2013, 2012, 2013, I was doing something with an organization that I will not speak of. But, there were over in 2000, back then there were over 150 jiu-jitsu studios in San Diego area alone.
No way. Oh my
God. Yeah, it was crazy. And Saulo was one of them, that I talked to. But it's ridiculous how many studios there were. but you had some phenomenal people. I mean, just, God, I can't even, it's been so long because I really haven't been involved in the industry since then. But I mean, it was just how many people I met, just like the MMA industry, and a lot of top people that were just, they would go to these organizations, they would go to these events, the Federation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, USFPJJ, whatever it was. And that's what I messed up. With Joe Moreira anyway, I helped Joe start an organization that I used to do. Sorry to get back to that.
No, it's okay.
But yeah, I mean, and I got Coca-Cola as a sponsor in 96 for Joe's tournament. That was unheard of back then. Yeah, I literally had today. Yeah, so they were involved, but that's how involved I used to be in 94, 90 through 99, something like that. But again, in 2013, I was with this other organization and going around, traveling actually all around the States and going to a lot of different places. But, I don't know a lot about it, but I would see a lot of guys and I would look them up and see who they were and look at there was some really impressive. Buchecha, I mean, insane. You watch him. I met, what was his name? He just fought in, he fought Musashi in Bellator and beat him. What is his name? He comes from a family that's been jiu-jitsu guy.
Okay. Well, I'll look it up here so that we're not fumbling around.
Yeah, sorry. So anyway, I mean, honestly, I don't know a lot about jiu-jitsu. My God, it was horrible. It just was something I never really got. I never fully understood. I have a lot of respect for them. I have a lot of respect for people that are really good at it, because to me, it's a chess game. Personally, I just don't think I'm smart enough for it.
Well, Tom.
I mean,
I know we're kind of wrapping up right now. How about 3 people during your stint with the Affliction brand, on the MMA side that you learned from, people that you really appreciated coming into your life?
He's talking about Rafael Lovato Jr., the guy who's got the win over Musashi. So
yeah. Thank you.
Not a bad choice. Not a bad choice.
I would say Paul Buentello for sure. Cool guy. Just got along with him really, really well. We still talk to this day. God, who else? Andre Arlovsky. Arlovsky appreciated what we did. Arlovsky was the kind of guy. Arlovsky was a dream to work with. Arlovsky was
really.
Yeah, he really was. I think it had a lot to do with what we paid him. But honestly, Arlovsky was the kind of guy that if you asked him to do something, it was no problem. He'd be there. He'd be there on time. He was there ready to rehearse, ready to do whatever it was you asked of him. So, and there were a lot of fighters that were a nightmare. There were a lot of fighters that were great and easy to work with. I get it. Don't think I don't, because you're cutting weight and you're irritable, and so I understand it. Luckily for me, I get the process. But at the same time, if somebody's paying you, if you're working for somebody, you do what they say. And so that's why lots of times, even with the UFC, when people complain about Dana and the UFC and how they treat fight, you know what? When you deal with some of these guys, it's like having just a horrible employee that shows up late, and there's really not much you can do about it unless you want to get rid of them.
So what you're talking about, I would do that where, I it'd been like 15th fight in the UFC, and they say be here at 7:30, and me and my crew were there at 7:30, and maybe like one other new guy, and nobody else is there. I'm just like, what are you doing, man? I mean, maybe it's just because I've had a real job, and that's important. Like, people come when they want, and and if you act like, people don't understand. In a way, Dana's your boss. If you do what your boss says, he's not going to treat you bad. But if you think you're better than everything and you're the badass, he's going to talk shit about you on TV. So I get it, man. Like I treat those people bad too if you're going to do that stuff to me. I mean, I put on fights. I help these guys. And if you're going to act like a turd, I'm going to treat you bad too. So I understand that. It's just not Dana being bad all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And people think that. And, and I've talked shit about Dana. But it is true. He is their boss. And And lots of times, people's egos get in the way, and they start thinking that they can call the shots, and they can. Well, guess what? You're not the one who put your money on the line. You're not the one who worked years and years and years losing money. And so for people to say, it always comes back. If you don't know the other side, I don't think you have a right to talk. And that's the same thing.
I agree. I
agree. Think it's the same thing. When people say, "Oh, this guy's a shitty fighter," really? How many times have you fought? How many times have you trained to get in there and get punched in the face? How many times?
What's your cutoff time on your diet? What time do you stop eating it?
Yeah. Exactly. So I think it's one of those things that I have a lot of respect for people who do and not just talk about it. And I don't know.
Cool.
Just my feeling.
No, that's
Miguel?
Cool.
There we go.
I was thinking back a lot, one of the things he said to me, I remember doing the rule meeting for the Abu Dhabis at the Brazil show, like in 2003. And it was a zoo, and I don't speak Portuguese, but there are a lot of Brazilians there. And I was like, do I do it in Spanish? Do I do it in English? I did it in English, and it got translated to Portuguese. But the point is, it was a zoo. Ryan Gracie didn't want to weigh in, and this and that and the other stuff. And the minute we said, all right, the room meeting starts there, the room is empty. I had walked in, I'm sitting at the podium, and sitting in the front row was Royler Gracie, just waiting.
I love it.
Just waiting, you know what I mean? It just goes, so like at some point,
well, that's why he was the best in the world.
At some point, the guys that do everything right, it does pay off. You know what I mean? I do believe that. So it's interesting what you say about Arlovsky, because I think money talks a little bit too. But
he doesn't have that reputation. Yeah,
if you have that discipline really shines through in a lot of different areas for the fighters. I think you notice it in many areas, so it's like you start to respect people differently.
Somebody I forgot to mention was Sean Shirk too. Sean's a great guy. Sean is a really, really interesting person. If you know his backstory, his life story, it's insane. But if you know Sean, you know why he is as structured as he is, and you know why he's so disciplined, and there's never any veering right or left when he does things. I definitely have a lot of respect for Sean, not just as a fighter, but as a person. He really was one of the few guys that
who'd you have Shirk fight? Who'd Shirk fight?
Oh, not for me. I'm sorry, but as far as somebody that I worked with, because we sponsored Shirk for a long time, and he was always the guy that was always there on time. He was always the guy who was did everything. Yeah, but no, we didn't fight. I wish.
Yep.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, I know you and Antonio McKee were real tight too.
Who?
Antonio McKee.
I like Antonio. I get along with Antonio. I did something with him for somebody, an interview with him. He's a character. Antonio was a character, man. We used to. He helped me for my third fight, I think it was, and then he.
Got phenomenal gym right now. He's got a lot of. He's cranking.
Well, his son is phenomenal.
Yeah,
and he has a lot of Russians at his gym.
He's got the body shop. He's got a legit gym, man. Like he's an actual coach. Like he's bringing people from their first fight to their last. Like there's a lot of poachers, that we refer to as. He's a legit coach. Yeah, no, he's doing a lot of big things out there.
But his kid's phenomenal, man. That guy, has he even lost? I don't think he's lost yet, has he?
No, he's undefeated. I think.
Is he undefeated?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good.
He's on Bellator, right?
Yeah.
Is his name Antonio also?
No, it's AJ.
AJ.
Yeah, I'll look it up here so we stay clean on it.
AJ McKee.
On the facts here.
Yeah, he's doing the whole Mayweather thing. I wonder if I know Bellator was certainly kind of putting their marketing behind him for a while. It seems to have petered off. I think the last big fight that he was in, him and his father fought on the same card.
Yeah, they did over here in LA.
Yeah.
Good. But I think that's the other problem with fighters too, is some guys are hard to market. It's like, as much as people hate oh God, I can't think of his name, Conor McGregor, he's marketable. So no matter what people say, you're your own entity. And if you don't market yourself, if you don't you got to come off one way or another. You got to be a bad guy or maybe a good guy, whatever it is. But one way or another, you have to be able to be marketable in order to reach the top.
People got to want to see you fight. You know,
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. That's what I always try to tell people. I'm like, you can be the best fighter in the world, but if you can't get 10 people to watch you, nobody cares. I mean, at the end of the day, this is entertainment business, and this isn't baseball. This isn't some other sport where, you know, your stats speak for you. No. The only thing that speaks really is how many people want to watch you fight. So you better not only be able to be a great fighter, but you better be able to entertain some people. So, and that can come in different forms. You don't have to stand there and slug it out the whole time, but I mean, you better be able to be entertaining, and that's up to you. Now, look at Chael Sonnen, for example. To me, not a very entertaining fighter, really, but walked his way into like the most entertaining non-fight. I mean, like before the pre-fight, the most entertaining fighter of all time, I think. I mean, without, you know, I mean, you could say Conor, but I mean, Chael can talk you into making him watch his fight, even though you know he's not going to put on an exciting fight. That's impressive, man. I mean,
I agree.
Everything he got.
I couldn't get Chael to do anything on time. The motherfucker. I remember one time at the weigh-ins, he was being coached by Robert Fallis at the time, and we got Fallis coming up and down and up and down. And he comes up to me, he's like, "Man, he's playing Nintendo. He had bought his Nintendo with him. He had plugged it in on the TV. And he's playing Nintendo during the weigh-ins." I believe that it was all a mind game because he was fighting a Russian and stuff, and he wasn't going to show up at the weigh-in on time. And it was all premeditated. Now you look back at it, but I'm like, "You're fucking kidding me, Nintendo, blah blah blah." But so he was thinking about it, but Chael didn't really blossom until later.
That's embarrassing. He's playing Nintendo
or PlayStation.
There's some turbo graphics.
He's a couple decades behind.
Yeah. I'm sorry. You know, he had his Commodore 64.
No, I think Chael was very, very methodical in most of the stuff he does. And yeah, I think he talks well. I think you're absolutely right about Chael. I think that was one of the great things about Chael is he knew that if he was the bad guy, that people would want to watch him either win or lose if you liked him. But he was a smart guy when it came to marketing himself. Still is.
Yeah, and a lot of the guys are, like you mentioned it with Antonio McKee. He's a guy, that, you know, kind of got boxed into being boring, you know, and then all of a sudden you get that reputation and you're stuck, man. You're just stuck. And that reputation is so
it's hard to lose.
The UFC gave it to him. I mean, it was Joe Silva that kind of poo-pooed him and said he was boring, and that's that, you know?
Yeah, that was it. Well, good. Hey, Tom, dude, always a pleasure. Always.
Really appreciate all your time and telling us
an insight.
Fantastic stories.
For sure, man.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you, Tom. Definitely cool to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you, Miguel. Chris, pleasure meeting you in person for the first time.
Thank you.
Both you guys. Mike, I already know you.
All right, brother. Be good, Tom. Take care.
All right, guys. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Have a good night. Take care.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.